Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from the CUNY TV Foundation, Capital One Bank, Genova Burns, Gian Tomasi and Webster, New York Community Bank, the Witkoff Group, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Greenberg Traurig, LLP, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Colliers International NYC, Cushman and Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Eastern Union Funding, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors LLC, Herrick Feinstein LLP, Hersha Hospitality Trust, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides Centurion Holdings, Margolin Weiner and Evans LLP, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, New Banks, People's United Bank, RBS Citizens Bank, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, The Continuum Company, LLC, and these friends.
So you walk around New York City and all you see are cranes. You see construction. You can't miss it. There's another crane. There's another crane. There's everything. So what's happening? There is an enormous amount of residential development taking place in New York. People want to come to New York City. So today I've assembled 3 individuals who are extensively involved in the residential construction and also the man who has the money so you can build this type of property. My guests today include Eran Polack, who is the CEO of HAP, Melissa Pianko, who is the Executive Vice President for Development for the Gotham organization, Kevin Davis, who is the Chief Investment Officer for Taconic Investment Partners, and as I said, last but not least, the man with the money, Ben Stacks, who is the Market Manager for Greater New York for Capital One Bank. As opposed to asking the developers, I want to ask the banker, in your career, have you seen this amount of construction? Have you seen this euphoria today?
I suppose one could look back to '06, '07 maybe and draw some comparisons.
Would you say we're doing, I'd say I see more construction today than I saw in '06 and '07 for residential.
You know, it's possible. I think the city's doing phenomenally well. We were just talking about it a few minutes ago. People want to live here, and the folks here on the show are delivering product to the people that want to live in the city. So, you know, I think the city is in a great position, and there's a lot of demand to live here.
Melissa, Gotham, over the last couple of years, you had the corner on 72nd Street and Broadway. You have Gotham West right now, which is on 44th, 45th Street, off 10th Avenue. You're breaking ground on Ashland, and you've done all of this developments throughout the city, in Harlem and everywhere. I mean, how do you look at it?
In terms of the rental market's very strong, and it's getting particularly strong in the boroughs. If you look at where Brooklyn is and where Queens is getting, the rents there have been going up consistently over the last couple of years, and they're going to continue to go up.
So where are the opportunities? Because I'm going to get to our friend from Tel Aviv in a second and how he came here, but where do you see the opportunities?
Opportunities are hard, honestly, because you cannot pay nearly as much for land to do a rental as you could to do a condo, and since there are many developers out there right now who are willing to do condos, it creates a real scarcity of sites which have to be rentals. Usually those are specific circumstances like ground leases or somebody who wants to keep their land in the deal. So it's tough. I mean, and our deals often take years and years and years in terms of pre-development and entitlements before they become realities.
I mean, with regard to that, if we take the West Side deal, I mean, that was 10 years in the development at least?
We started working on it in 2005, and it's in the market now, so it's 9 years later.
9 years. So, Eran, how you come here from Tel Aviv, you take a small little site. Your first development is in an area that Gotham has always been involved with, Harlem and that section of town, and now you have 10 developments. What are the opportunities for in Israeli investors and Israeli developers in New York City today?
So the opportunity was in two different places. It was here and it was in Israel. It was here because we came in 2010 and land prices were low. We bought in 2010, 2011, 2012.
And you just bought in 2013.
And also in 2013, and I think we did well. And the other opportunity was raising equity in Tel Aviv, because the Tel Aviv market was very high. People have money to invest, and they wanted to invest it someplace else. And the other opportunity was that even Stanley Fisher was pushing the banks in Israel to make loans for project here in New York and not in Tel Aviv. So that was another opportunity to take loans, construction loan from banks like Bank Leumi, that is very active here in New York, and that doesn't want to lend.
Now it's very interesting because Bank Leumi, who are good friends of mine, they've been known, and Ben would acknowledge this also, as being a relatively conservative lender over here. And even if it was, they would not make loans to new developers in town. They would look at experience, which you may have in Israel, and Europe, and other places. They would look, but they like the capital stack and they like the relationship, their relationship, the same way which you are.
Indeed, yeah.
Yes. So first of all, of course, we have the relationship with that bank from Israel. But yeah, they are conservative. They are not doing. They are doing like 65% loan to cost, recourse. So yeah, they are conservative.
It's very similar to the way
Right.
we are.
So now, you guys, I mean, you have a variety of things. You have this fantastic condominium down in Tribeca, which Ben happens to be your lender over there.
Right.
You have this new 8020
on 52nd Street.
on 52nd Street, not too far from your development over there. And then you have this major development in the Lower East Side. So how do you look at the market today, and where are the opportunities?
Well,
We didn't get to Coney Island, but I'll bring that up in a second.
the three projects that we have underway each have their own story. So 52nd Street, we are in the process of taking that through a rezoning. So we have a controlled land basis. On the Sterling Mason in Tribeca, we bought the land almost 2 years ago, went into contract almost 2 years ago. There's been a dramatic run-up in land prices over that period of time. So if you're able to buy something, like Eran bought a number of sites over the years, you're able to develop them and make economic sense of them. Buying land today is very difficult. The Seward Park urban renewal area that we're redeveloping with L&M and BFC was a response to a city-issued RFP, which prescribed the affordability factor of that and prescribed rentals, and basically the components of that project were taken into account in our valuation. So in essence, we were able to go into that project at a price that made sense because we knew exactly what we were going into. Now, if the city put that on land and said you could go and build, put it out to any developer and said pay market price, can all be luxury condominiums, it would have traded at a much, much higher price.
Speaking of the condo market, Eran's going into, let's say, Upper Manhattan to develop a condo, which there haven't been any real comps over there, but I believe there's a true need. And an affordable condo at like $600-700 a square foot, I think, will do great not too far from the subway and so on. Because, you know, Gotham has been in Harlem over there, you know, but mostly rentals, and also some condos going
too.
over there. Where do you see an opportunity today, and both as a banker, you know, when you look at them, where are there that many opportunities, or are there very few today based on what people are paying for land and so on?
So you're saying, is it possible to buy land to do a condo today on the open market?
Yes.
I think it depends how you underwrite. I mean, if you believe that a rising tide's going to lift all boats and that the market's going to continue to go up, then you're able to pay based on what you expect prices to be in the future, and that's how land's trading right now. Land's not necessarily trading on today's anticipated prices. It's trading on what people think the prices are going to be when they deliver.
But
and
here,
people are assuming that the curve is going up.
Here's the question that comes up. People are assuming they're going to go up. You know, there are X number of people who can afford certain prices, okay? You know, if you take the 57th Street properties, you know, that's going to one category. If you go into the other properties that we're talking about, that's an affordable or a working class, middle class person, or an Eran's properties. You know, there's a number that you have to say, ouch.
Yeah.
Because, you know, part of the situation is in certain, especially a condo, you don't have tax abatements anymore. You know, and I remember, and Kevin and Ben will remember, you know, people used to say, oh, the ads in the Times used to say 421As. You know, everyone saw this thing about 421As. Now they forgot there's a term of tax abatement. Oh, yeah, the taxes over there. Even the apartment that you bought in Chelsea, when you moved in there, your taxes were what?
Lower than they are today.
No,
yeah, there was a tax abatement, so they're
Right.
next to nothing. When
They were next to nothing, and now you're up to, most of it's phased in by now.
Yeah.
So all the taxes. How do you, as a bank, because
There's no doubt that affordability is a big concern for us. I mean, not just on condos, but rentals as well.
Right.
I mean, the rental rates are going up to very high levels, and you know they seem to be growing unabated on both sides. And we just at some point, I don't know when that would be, but at some point we're not gonna continue to underwrite those higher numbers, and we are concerned about the number of condo units that are coming on the market at these high prices and how many people can afford them. Same is true with the rental market. The rental market's getting very expensive, and that's why a lot of folks are moving to the boroughs. So it's definitely an ongoing concern for us.
One thing that I think is an interesting hedge against the rent, because we're also fearful about what happens to the rental market, particularly in Manhattan, because rents are going up faster than incomes. And so people, for the most part, can't afford, you know, you graduate from law school, you're earning $160,000 a year. It's hard for you to afford a one bedroom. You may not even be earning that much. You might be earning 150,
you know,
140.
when you're talking about somebody earning that, we're talking about somebody graduating in the top of their class.
Right.
If you take the situation
not even.
of,
That was where I was going, yeah.
of 80% of the law school graduates taking a job for $50,000 to $60,000 a job, that's a big difference. Okay.
Right.
There's, you know. So if you take the situation, it's very hard to afford. That's why a number of people are taking the low-cost alternative and going to Jersey City, where you can rent an apartment for $42 a foot, where you could buy an apartment maybe for $700 a foot, which now relates to something why yours are an affordable situation. There are certain other opportunities, but because of the lack of transportation or some amenities, they're not doing well. For example, Coney Island. You know, it has great waterfront, it has situation, but it's an hour by train just to get.
Might as well move into the suburbs.
That's right.
So,
Okay, and then, you know, Staten Island has the same situation. You know, people are thinking about Staten Island, but there's a bridge, and it takes time to get over that bridge,
Or a ferry.
and the ferry and the cost of the bridge of the ferry.
Sure.
But the bigger problem that happens, and we were talking the other day, you have 4 children. 4 children to go to school. You have 3 children. The cost of sending a person to private school is prohibitive in New York City. I mean, you know, that's why many people move to the suburbs or to the other areas over there.
But you're seeing more and more people
coming back.
Either
Very
coming back when
aggressively.
they're
Well,
empty
they're
nesters,
older people, right?
or
Not just people with kids coming back. Transportation is very expensive. Bridges are expensive. Roads are expensive. Gas is expensive. cars is expensive, everything is expensive, and at the end of the day, lifestyle in the suburbs is expensive. It's not cheap.
Sure.
So you can see a lot of people
So
with
I,
kids
I
coming
won't,
back
I
to the
won't see
city.
you developing in White Plains yet. Okay?
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
But there's a huge premium that people put on convenience. And being able to walk out of their door, walk to a restaurant across the street, to be able to walk their kids to school, to be able to walk to work like I do. You know, my time is becoming one of the most valuable commodities.
I mean,
and
you know, fortunately,
there's a lot of
when
value
you
to it.
left, you know, Time Warner Center to go to 111 8th Avenue, I mean, you didn't realize you'd have a 6-minute walk, maybe, to work.
Right.
That's quality of life.
That's true quality of life.
Yeah. I think it's 4 minutes, but
It's 4 minutes.
Who's
over there. Midtown West zoning was a big item. You know, the opportunities over there of, you know, if land prices are high and you can build higher, then your costs can go down lower in certain cases. So you're able to maybe build a more affordable situation. And our biggest problem that we have in the city is the lack of affordable housing. I mean, fortunately, on your development on the west side, there is a significant amount of affordable housing. And what you're going to be building in Seward Park is going to be a larger portion of affordable. How do we take care of meeting the demands of the city, the people of the city of New York, and also, you know, you're a for-profit business, you know? You have to, you know, you're here to make a profit. We're not going back to the kibbutzes.
I guess not. No.
well, I think Mayor de Blasio has made it very clear that one of his main goals is to dramatically increase the number of affordable housing units. I think his goal is 200,000 during his 4-year period. It's necessary. New York City has become a city of the wealthy, and it seems to become more so every year. And, you know, reading about 20, 30, 40, 50 million, $100 million apartments seems to be something that we do every single day in the newspaper. There's absolutely demand for it. From a social standpoint, it's necessary. But we're all economically driven as developers, and I think what's necessary, the reason why developers are building affordable today is because of a tax abatement or because of zoning bonuses. If you increase zoning bonuses, if you allow for sites that are not zoned residential to be built as residential, if say you build 50% affordable, something like that, to offer incentives to the developers, affordable housing will happen. But again, we're all economically driven. We're not going to do it unless it makes financial
I think
sense.
also there is a big shortage in the 700 to 1,000, 1,200 per square foot.
Right.
range,
I think what
which
you're,
is not really affordable, but
it's more affordable.
It's
It's more affordable
yes,
for a middle-class person
for middle class
to
yes.
go into
and
something.
there is a huge
you know,
shortage in this.
You know,
product.
and I think if you look at that, at this place, if you can have an apartment, 1,000 square foot apartment at $500 a foot, you're at $500,000, okay? And if you have 20% down or 25% down, based on the mortgage rates and the taxes, you're probably, you know, it's the point that something that everybody always wanted, you know, was to own your own home.
Yes.
And you know, if you can get something at an affordable rate, we're not talking about those $20, $30 million homes that you read about over here. Look, I know a lot of people, I don't know anybody who's buying any of these mega homes, okay? You know, it's not in my stratosphere and I don't know. But I know people who are looking for affordable, and we were talking about, you know, on the Manhattan's east side, you can buy affordable apartments in older buildings because it's not hip. It's not.
The Upper East Side is becoming the value play.
That's right. The Upper East Side or Southern Place or Midtown West is the value place. And I think where you're looking in, you know, going into certain parts of Harlem, certain parts of Washington Heights, and the Inwood market, where you happen to have pretty good transportation. And, I mean, you probably have the best health care in the city. I mean, you know, Cornell, New York Presbyterian healthcare is a very important thing.
Columbia, yeah.
You know, Columbia, those are great
Mount
amenities.
Sinai.
And if you take, you know, what's happening with the Columbia expansion, just look at that as a situation. That's really valuable. Now, do you see, and I'm not picking on you, because there is so much space in two parts of the city which really haven't had development. One being the Coney Island section, and the other section being the Rockaway section. You know, if there could be, you know, a form of light rail or another means of transportation, these areas which have lots of vacant space could maybe be developed. I mean, has the Gotham organization ever looked at in that market?
We haven't, because there is no transportation that's great. So, I mean, when we look for where we think there's long-term value, we look at a bunch of different factors, and transportation is very high on the list.
Well, if you think about Coney Island and the Rockaways, it has an unbelievably unique asset that very few locations, in fact, maybe no other location in the city has, which is a beach and access to the ocean. The issue with it is the lack of transportation. So yeah, if you ran a light rail, if you ran an extra express train to Coney Island or to the Rockaways, and you cut down the amount of time it would take to get from here to there, I think you'd see a dramatic increase in demand. And
You know, and this happened in the last recession, we'd say. You know, Eran comes here with substantial amount of equity, good players back from Israel backing the thing, and experienced people who've been in the business. Once again, I'm seeing a number of people who say, I want to be a developer. You know, it's like, you know, it's something, you know, forget I want to be a physician. I want to be a developer. Have you seen the let's say the new kid on the block saying to you, I want to be a developer? And some of those people who I remember who nearly failed in the 2008s are back again and saying, I am a developer.
Look, for us, it's about experience and capitalization, and you know, the ability to build in a really tough market. I mean, New York is one of the toughest markets in the country to build in, and so you know, if it's a large-scale development, you know, we would look very hard at somebody's experience and their capabilities to do that.
So how's your view about somebody who's new kid on the block?
Quite frankly, if they do not have any Manhattan development experience, it would be tough. I mean, I think it's a very tough business. You have to have, you know, cost controls. You have to, you know the zoning. You have to know the right players to get something done. And so, you know, I don't think this is a business for
novices.
For novices, I mean, it's a very tough business.
How are we seeing? You know, and this always happens when there are too many cranes up in the air. How are we seeing costs of construction? Have they gone up substantially over the last year and a half?
Yes.
Yes.
How much would you say they've gone up?
Now, I don't know on a percentage basis,
No, I mean,
but I can certainly tell you they are going up, and they're going to continue to go up. If you look at the world of the union world, there are only a few union subcontractors for certain trades. So, you know, that gives them a huge ability to drive pricing. So if you look at superstructure contractors or foundation contractors, there are only a couple out there. So that means that they can really drive pricing when there's a lot of competing work for their services.
How are you as a new player seeing construction costs?
Construction cost is going up, and I definitely see construction companies that cannot take work for the next 2 years. They are booked up, they have work, and they cannot take more work. So yeah, it's driving prices up, definitely.
Since you're pricing jobs right now, how much have you, you know, when you develop a project, as Melissa was saying before, you know, the other one took 9 years from the beginning to the end. From your budgets that you originally worked, let's say on 52nd Street right now, and also originally, you know, on the Tribeca situation, how much higher have the construction costs been than the initial planned or projected?
sure. We didn't see a dramatic run-up in Tribeca based on the actual cost.
But you
we
were in
changed.
early there. I mean,
Right, we were in early. We were able to buy our trades basically at a point in time when there wasn't a lot of demand for it. So we had pricing power. Right now, the contractors have pricing power. On 52nd Street, we're pricing that right now, and I would say over the last year or so, we've probably seen hard costs go up about 10%.
So here's another question with regard to residential development. How many of these developments that you're building happen to have ground floor retail, and how important is it?
So all of our projects have ground floor retail, and I think retail and residential projects used to be an afterthought. It used to be that you'd finish the project and then you'd stick something in the bottom at the end. We actually approached Gotham West in a very different way. We tried to activate the street and activate the building in the neighborhood with our ground floor retail. So we put in something called Gotham West Market, yeah, which is a collection of 8 small restaurants with really, nationally renowned chefs in each of the different places. So we've got Blue Bottle Coffee, we've got El Camado, which is Shaman Mullen's new restaurant. We've got the Cannibal, and what that's been able to do for us is it is an amenity for the residents. And frankly, I think everybody else in the neighborhood should be kissing us because we've really improved the whole streetscape.
No, because you brought something to a neighborhood that didn't have restaurants. Right. This was something, and I remember I'm saying this to T.F. Cornerstone a couple years ago when they went to the far west side, 37th, 38th Street and 10th and 11th. There were no amenities, right. Okay? If you didn't have the Duane Reade with a little supermarket in it, you'd have that. Are you going to put retail in your property on 10th Avenue?
Yeah, we do have a retail space there. I think it's about 14,000 square feet.
And what type of tenancy do you think will be there? More of a mixed use?
I think in an ideal world, it would be a food service, something along the lines of a Trader Joe's, just to name a name, or a high-end gym, something like that.
Eran, what about you and all your developments?
We have retail in most of our development. We have big component in Broadway and 190. We have in 28th Street. We have also 15,000 square foot of retail. And yeah, I agree. I think if you're bringing interesting things, if you're willing to give like sometime free, if you're willing to chase something interesting or create yourself, it's great, and it's bringing a lot of added value to the neighborhood and to the people that live in the building. 2
amenities which, and I remember going back a number of years ago, one of the amenities that people liked was the food amenity for the food that's delivered.
Fresh Direct?
Fresh Direct.
Cold storage?
The cold storage for Fresh Direct. And the second thing was the health club. Okay, the health club has always been
absolutely necessary.
Absolutely.
Right. Do you see another amenity which I think will be there, and I know it's been a great amenity for my wife and I, is like the storage rooms where you can put your luggage and you can have other things. Storage rooms and bike racks, are you seeing?
Yeah, well, first of all, bike racks are in every project now. They're required by zoning.
Yes.
Right, but what about the storage?
Storage is a great amenity, and if your project can figure out a space for it that makes sense, it's always great to put it in. It really just depends on the actual program of your specific building and whether you have extra room to be able to put in storage.
But I think the storage is over there. So
we're doing storage in any building.
I think we have cautious optimism here. I see the world is over there, and there's a question of how high you can go, and if you have the right product with the right market, and we're talking about a reasonable price market, I think it'll work out well. And let's just hope that the mayor and the administration follows the past history of the past 20 years, and I think they will, and we'll have a good situation. And I'd like to thank Eran, Melissa, Kevin, and our banker, Ben, and I'll see you next week.